Please, help me. I have been lying here since morning. Onyi saw that his leg was caught in one of her traps and it was bleeding. He looked like he was in a lot of pain, even though she was still a bit scared. Onyi felt bad for him. Amala village was a quiet place, surrounded by the vast forest that seems to stretch endlessly. The village was made up of small mud houses with thatched roofs, each one built close to the next, creating a tight-knit community. In the mornings, the sound of rooster crowing filled the air, and the smoke rose from the cooking fires as women prepared meals. The children would run around, laughing and playing, while the men went to the farms, their hoes slung over their shoulders. The heart of Amala was the village square, where the elders held meetings and festivals were celebrated. There, under the large iroko tree, the villagers would gather to tell stories, share news, and discuss important matters. Life in Amala was simple, but it was not without challenges, especially with the forest nearby, which held many secrets and dangers. Onyinyechi, often called Onyi by the villagers, was one of the few who felt at home in the forest. She was unlike anyone Amala had ever seen. With her tall, confident stance, she carried a bow slung across her back and a machete at her side. Onyi's father had been a great hunter, and when he passed, the people assumed the role would be taken over by another man, but Onyi proved them wrong. Ever since she was young, Onyi had followed her father on his hunting trips. She learned to track the footprints of the wild animals, listening to the rustling leaves, and sense danger before it struck. Her father always said, "The forest speaks, Onyi. You just have to know how to listen." Even when the elders insisted that hunting wasn't meant for a girl, Onyi ignored them. She worked harder, trained longer, and soon became the greatest hunter in Amala. One early morning, Onyi stood at the edge of the forest, her dark eyes scanning the horizon. She had heard rumors of a leopard roaming near the village, an animal that had frightened the farmers and kept the children indoors. The elders had called for a meeting, and many spoke of leaving the leopard alone, afraid it might attack anyone who dared to face it. But Onyi knew better. She knew that the leopard, like all creatures, needed to be understood, not feared. "Onyi, are you going after the leopard?" her younger brother, Chidi, asked as he approached her. Chidi admired his sister and often wished he had her courage. Onyi smiled, ruffling her hair. "I am, Chidi. But remember, fear will only grow if we let it. I must protect the village." Chidi looked worried, but the leopard is dangerous. "All animals are dangerous when they feel threatened," Onyi said, "but I won't hurt it unless I have to. Trust me, Chidi." Chidi nodded slowly, though worry was still in his eyes. "Just be careful, Onyi. The village needs you." "I will," Onyi replied, her voice gentle but firm. "I promise." As Onyi turned to leave, an elderly woman approached them. It was Mama Ekwe, one of the village elders. "Onyi, my child," she called, her voice soft with concern. "Are you really going after the leopard alone? The forest can be unforgiving." Onyi nodded respectfully. Yes, Mama Ekwe, I must. If we leave the leopard alone, it may come closer to the village and harm someone. But I know the forest well. I will be careful. Mama Ekwe sighed, her eyes filled with both admiration and worry. You have your father's courage, Oni. May the spirits of the forest protect you. Thank you, Mama Ekwe, Oni said, bowing slightly. She then looked at Chidi. Take care of things while I'm gone, okay? Chidi puffed out his chest, trying to look brave. I will, Oni. Just come back safely. With that, Oni entered the forest, her footstep light and careful. She moved like a shadow among the tall trees. Every sense of high alert. She spotted broken branches and paw prints pressed into the mud, signs that the leopard had been there recently. Oni knelt, her fingers brushing against the print. It was fresh. Hours passed and the sun was high in the sky when Oni finally found the leopard. It was resting near a small stream, its golden fur shimmering in the sunlight. Oni could see the fear in its eyes. This was not a beast looking to attack. It was lost and scared. Slowly, Oni lowered her bow. She spoke softly, her voice calm and gentle. Easy, I won't hurt you. The leopard looked at her, its ears twitching. Oni reached into her pouch and took out a small piece of dried meat, tossing it towards the animal. The leopard sniffed the air, then cautiously moved forward to eat. Oni watched, her heart steady. She knew that this was not just about hunting, it was about understanding and respect. When Oni returned to the village later that day, the people gathered around her. Did you kill it? One of the elders asked, his eyes wide with curiosity. Oni shook her head. No, elder. The leopard meant no harm. It was only lost. I laid it back to the deeper forest, where it belongs. The villagers murmured among themselves, surprise and relief. Mama Ekwe stepped forward, her eyes filled with pride. Oni, you have done well. You have shown wisdom beyond your years. Chidi ran to his sister, a smile spreading across his face. You did it, Oni. Oni nodded, her eyes filled with determination. We must learn to live with the forest, not against it, she said. And from that day on, the people of Amala knew that their village was safe, not just because of Onyinyechi's skills, but because of her wisdom and courage. 1 week later, after Onyinyechi led the leopard away from Amala village, the villagers were relieved, and the life had returned to its normal. The children ran through the village square again, playing their games, while the farmers returned to their field without fear. Oni, however, knew that peace in Amala was always temporal. The forest was unpredictable, and danger could appear at any time. Oni was busy repairing her father's old bow in front of their small mud house. Chidi sat beside her, carving a small wood into the shape of a small animal. He looked up at Oni, admiration shining in his eyes. Oni, do you think I can be a hunter like you one day? He asked. Oni paused her work, looking at her brother with a soft smile. Chidi, you can be anything you want to be, but hunting is not about skill. It's about understanding the forest and everything that lives in it. Chidi nodded eagerly. I want to learn. I want to be brave like you. Then I will teach you, Oni said. ruffling his hair. But you must be patient. The forest has many lessons, and it takes time to learn them all. Just then, they heard hurried footsteps approaching. It was Obinna, one of the young men from the village. He looked worried, his face pale as he ran up to Onyi. Onyi, you need to come to the square. The elders are meeting, and they want you there. There is trouble. Onyi stood up immediately, her expression serious. What kind of trouble, Obinna? She asked, her voice calm but firm. Obinna shook his head, catching his breath. It's the forest again. Some of the farmers said they saw strange men near the edge of the village. They were carrying weapons. Onyi, the elders think they might be poachers. Onyi's eyes narrowed, her heart pounding. Poachers are dangerous. They didn't care about the balance of the forest or the life they took. They hunted for profit, and they would destroy anything in their way. Take me to the square, Obinna, she said. Chidi looked up at Onyi, worry clouding his face. Can I come too, Onyi? He asked. Onyi shook her head. No, Chidi, stay here and finish your carving. I will be back soon. She gave him a reassuring smile before following Obinna to the village square. When they arrived, the elders were gathered under the large iroko tree. Their faces grim. Mama Ekwe was there, along with Elder Uche and a few other village leaders. The villagers stood around them, murmuring in low voices. Onyi stepped forward, and the elders turned their attention to her. Onyinyechi, thank you for coming, Elder Uche said, his voice heavy with concern. We have received reports of strange men near the forest. They are armed, and we fear they might be poachers. We need you to investigate. Onyi nodded. I will go, but I need to know more. How many men were they? And where were they seen? Mama Ekwe spoke up, her voice trembling slightly. There were 3 of them. Onyi, they were seen near the western edge of the village, close to the old mango grove. The farmers said they looked dangerous. Onyi's eyes hardened with determination. I will go and see what they are up to. If they are poachers, we must not let them harm the forest. Elder Uche nodded, though his expression remained worried. Be careful, Onyi. These men may not respect the forest as you do. They may not listen to reason. I understand, Elder, Onyi said, but I cannot let them threaten our home. She turned to leave, but Mama Ekwe reached out and touched her arm. Onyi, take someone with you, Mama Ekwe said, her voice filled with concern. You cannot face them alone. Onyi paused, considering the elders' words. She knew Mama Ekwe was right. Facing armed men alone was dangerous. She turned to Obinna. Obinna, will you come with me? I may need your help. Obinna's eyes widened, but he nodded. Of course, Onyi, I will come. Good, Onyi said, her voice steady. Let's go. We have no time to waste. As Onyi and Obinna made their way to the western edge of the village, the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadow across the ground. Onyi's senses were on high alert, her eyes scanning the trees for any sign of movement. She knew they had to be careful. If the poachers were still there, they would not hesitate to use their weapons. When they reached the old mango grove, Onyi raised her hand, signaling for Obinna to stop. She knelt down, studying the ground. There was footprint that led further into the forest. Onyi's heart tightened. The poachers had gone deeper into the forest. She knew they would not leave without taking something with them. Obinna, Onyi whispered, her voice barely audible. Stay close to me. We need to follow these tracks, but we must be quiet. Understand? Obinna nodded, his face serious. I understand, Onyi. Slowly, they moved deeper into the forest, following the tracks left by the poachers. The forests were growing darker, and the air was thick with tension. Onyi knew that they were heading into danger, but she could not turn back. She had to protect Amala, no matter the cost. As they moved, the rustling of leaves nearby made Onyi stop abruptly. She held her breath, listening intently. The sound of voices, low and harsh, reached her ears. She turned to Obinna, putting a finger to her lips, signaling him to stay silent. They crept forward, careful not to make a sound. Through the thick trees, Onyi could make out the figures of 3 men, each carrying a gun. They were speaking in hushed tones, their eyes scanning the forest as if searching for something. Onyi's heart pounded in her chest, but her mind remained clear. She turned to Obinna and whispered, we need to find out what they are after. Stay hidden. If anything goes wrong, run back to the village and warn them. Obinna swallowed hard, nodding, be careful, Onyi. Onyi gave him a reassuring smile, then turned her attention back to the poachers. She knew this was only the beginning. Whatever these men were after, she would not let them take it. Amala and the forest were her home, and she would protect them with everything she had. Onyinyechi crouched behind a large bush, her eyes fixed on the 3 poachers. They were talking among themselves, pointing towards the deeper part of the forest. She couldn't hear all their words, but she caught enough to know they were searching for something valuable that lay hidden in Amala's forest. Onyi's heart tightened with worry. The forest was filled with many rare animals and sacred places, and she couldn't let these men disturb them. Stay here, Obinna, Onyi whispered, her voice barely audible. I'm going to get closer and see what they are planning. If anything happens, run back to the village and tell the elders. Obinna's face peeled, but he nodded. Onyi, be careful. I don't want anything to happen to you. Onyi gave him a reassuring smile and squeezed his arm. I will be fine, Obinna. Trust me. With that, she moved quietly, slipping from bush to bush, getting closer to the men. Onyi knew the forest well, like the hiding spots and paths. She moved very carefully, like a real hunter. As Onyi got closer, she heard the men talking. The old man said, "It should be here, somewhere." One of the men said, sounding impatient, "A big tree with carvings on it. It's supposed to show where the treasure is." Onyi's heart raced. She knew they were talking about the sacred tree. The elders of the village said the tree was very special and held the spirits of their ancestors. The carvings on the tree told stories about the village. She couldn't let the poachers hurt it. Another man, who had a scar on his face, said, "I don't care about the old stories. I just want the treasure, gold, jewels, whatever it is ours." Onyi felt angry. They only wanted treasure and didn't care about the forest or its history. She knew she had to scare them away before they found what they were looking for. Onyi quietly took an arrow from her quiver and put it on her bow. She aimed at a tree near the men and took a deep breath. She didn't want to hurt them, just scare them. She released the arrow and it hit the tree with a loud thud. The poachers jumped in surprise and looked around, scared. "Who is there?" one of the poachers shouted, sounding nervous. "Show yourself." Onyi stayed quiet, hiding behind another big tree. She could see the fear in their faces, and she knew she needed to keep them afraid. She shot another arrow, and this time it landed near their feet. The men cursed and looked around frantically. "We need to get out of here," sounding very scared. "This place is haunted." Onyi almost laughed. The forest wasn't haunted, but they believed it was. That was good enough. She watched them run away, stumbling over roots and branches as they tried to escape. When they were far enough, Onyi waved for Obinna to come over. He ran to her, his eyes wide with awe. "That was amazing, Onyi," Obinna said. "You scared them away." Onyi nodded, but stayed serious. "They might come back, Obinna. We need to tell the elders and prepare the village." Obinna's face fell. "But what if they come back with more men? What if they try to hurt us?" Onyi put her hand on his shoulder. "We won't let that happen. The forest is our home, and we will protect it together. The spirits of our ancestors are here with us, and we have the strength of Amala. We will not give up." Obinna nodded, feeling brave again. "You are right, Onyi. We will protect our village." They walked back to the village as the sun began to set, making the forest look dark and shadowy. Onyi knew things would be tough, and she was ready to face it for her village and the forest she loved. When they reached the village square, the elders were waiting. Elder Uche looked worried and asked, "Onyinyechi, what did you find?" Onyi took a deep breath. "The poachers are looking for the sacred tree. They think there is treasure buried there. I scared them away, but they might come back. We need to be ready." Mama Ekwe gasped. "The sacred tree? They want to harm it?" Onyi nodded. "Yes, Mama Ekwe, but we won't let them. We must all work together to keep our village safe." Elder Uche turned to villagers. "Onyinyechi is right. We must protect our home. We will keep watch around the village and the forest. As long as we stay together, no one can hurt Amala." Everyone agreed, looking determined. Onyi felt proud. She knew that as long as they stood together, they could keep their village safe from any danger. The village of Amala sprang into action after Onyi's warning. The elders called a meeting, and all the villagers gathered under the large iroko tree in the square. The air was tense, and even the children, who normally played nearby, sat quietly, sensing the gravity of the situation. But despite the tension, there was also a sense of unity. The villagers brought food, and the Mama Ekwe served her delicious yam porridge to everyone gathered. The children, although quiet, couldn't help but smile at the taste, and even some of the adults found themselves relaxing for a moment as they shared a meal together. Elder Uche stood at the front as he addressed the villagers. "Our forest is under threat. These men want to destroy our sacred tree and take what they think is treasure. We cannot let this happen. We must protect the forest and everything in it." Mama Ekwe nodded and stepped forward. "The sacred tree is very old and special. It holds the spirits of our ancestors and its roots keep the forest alive. If it gets hot, we will lose more than just a tree. We will lose a part of who we are. Onyi stood beside the elders with her bow on her back. She looked at the villagers and saw that many of them were scared. She knew she had to be brave for everyone. I will lead a group to guide the sacred tree, she said loudly. But we need more than just a few hunters. We need everyone's help. The villagers whispered to each other. Then some of the men stepped forward. We will help you, Onyi. One man said, we may not know how to hunt, but we can learn. Onyi smiled, happy that they wanted to help. Thank you. We will set traps around the tree and make sure we watch it carefully. We need to make sure no one can get near without us knowing. Chidi, Onyi's little brother, stood up. He was shaking a bit but looked determined. Onyi, can I help too? I know I'm not big enough to fight, but I can watch and warn everyone. Onyi felt proud of her brother. She knelt down in front of him. Chidi, you are very brave. You can help by keeping watch and letting us know if you see anything. But promise me you will stay safe. Chidi nodded quickly. I promise, Onyi. Elder Uche raised his hand and everyone became quiet again. Tonight, we will stay near the sacred tree. Onyi and her group will keep watch first. We must show these men that Amala is not a place they can take for granted. Everyone agreed, and the meeting ended. Onyi and a group of 10 men and women got ready to enter into the forest. They gathered their supplies, bows, arrows, and rope for traps. Mama Ekwe gave Onyi a bundle of herbs. This will keep you strong, she said with a worried look. And remember, the spirits of the forest are always with you. Onyi took the herbs and nodded. Thank you, Mama Ekwe. We will protect the tree, I promise. As the villagers prepared for the night, the air was filled with smile and laughter. Some of the children pretended to be hunters like Onyi, holding sticks like bow. Chidi even showed the younger kids how to make whistle from leaves. And soon, the air was filled with funny whistling, sounds that made everyone smile, even though they were serious about the task. Hi, everyone! Eze, one of the older boys, called out as he stood on the rock. Who wants to be a hero like Onyi? The children cheered and danced around with their sticks, making everyone laugh. Onyi watched them with a warm smile. She knew she was fighting to protect not just the forest, but also the happiness of these children. As night fell, Onyi and her group walked to the sacred tree. The forest was quiet and dark. Onyi led the way, looking around carefully for any danger. They moved slowly, making sure not to make much noise. The forest was peaceful. Fireflies lit up the trees like little stars. Chidi pointed excitingly at some bush babies jumping between branches. Their big eyes shone in the dark. Look, Onyi, Chidi whispered. They are playing like us. Onyi smiled, feeling happy inside. Even though they were in danger, the forest was still full of life. It reminded her why they needed to protect it. When they reached the sacred tree, Onyi felt amazed. The tree was huge, with wide branches and a trunk covered in carvings that told the village story. She touched the tree's bark and felt its power. The tree was like the heart of Amala. Suddenly, they heard a noise, a rustling sound nearby. Onyi's heart beat fast. As she tried to see what it was, she pointed it out to one of the men. He nodded and moved quietly towards the sound. The rustling grew louder, and then a man appeared from the shadows. He was one of the poachers, with a gun on his back. He looked around, trying to find something. Onyi took a deep breath and armed her bow. She wasn't going to let him get closer to the tree. She shot an arrow and it landed near the man's feet. He jumped in fear, looking around. Onyi saw the fear in his eyes and knew she had to keep him scared. "Who is there?" the poacher shouted, his voice shaking. Just then, a group of monkeys started swinging through the trees above, making loud noises. The poacher looked terrified. He stormed backward, tripping over a root as the monkeys kept making noise. Onyi stayed quiet, watching them. She signaled to her group, and they got ready to defend the tree. The poacher looked around with wide eyes. "This place is cursed," he muttered before running back into the forest. Onyi watched him leave, her heart racing. She looked at Chidi, who was hiding in a nearby tree. He gave her a thumbs up, and Onyi smiled. They had done it. The night passed, and when the sun started to rise, Onyi felt hopeful. They had protected the sacred tree, and they would keep doing so. Amala was their home, and they would fight to keep it safe. The villagers, all working together, knew that no matter what happened, they would stay strong. The forest, with its animals and secrets, was on their side, and together they would protect Amala. A few days had passed since the night Onyi and the villagers scared away the poachers. Life in Amala village went back to normal. The villagers returned to their daily work, and the forest was peaceful again. Onyi kept hunting in the forest, moving quietly through the trees. She was very good at catching animals like rabbits, bushfowl, and even deer. She sold some of the animals at the market, cooked some for herself and her brother Chidi, and shared some with the villagers. The villagers admired Onyi for being so brave and kind. The men in the village often talked about her and wondered who would marry her one day. Onyi was not only strong and hardworking, but she was also very beautiful. One sunny morning, Onyi went back into the forest. She was checking her traps, hoping to catch something good. She walked carefully through the trees, looking out for animals. When she reached one of her traps, she saw something surprising: a person lying on the ground. Her heart beat fast, and she quickly pulled out her bow, thinking it might be one of the poachers who had come back. She walked closer, her arrow ready. When she got nearer, she saw it wasn't a poacher. It was a young man lying on the ground, and he looked hot. He was very handsome, more handsome than any of the boys in the village. His clothes were dirty and torn, and he looked very weak. Onyi stayed careful, keeping her bow ready. As she got closer, the young man looked up at her, his face full of pain. He spoke in a soft, weak voice. "Please, help me. I have been lying here since morning." Onyi saw that his leg was caught in one of her traps, and it was bleeding. He looked like he was in a lot of pain, even though she was still a bit scared. Onyi felt bad for him. He didn't look dangerous, and he seemed like he really needed help. "Who are you?" Onyi asked firmly. The young man winced and said, "My name is Ifeanyi. I mean no harm. Please help me. I have lost a lot of blood." Onyi looked at him for a moment, then lowered her bow. She knelt beside him and carefully removed the trap from his leg. The young man groaned as she did it, but he stayed still. Onyi took out some herbs that Mama Ekwe had given to her and crushed them to make a paste. She put the paste on his wound to stop the bleeding. The young man looked at her with a grateful eyes. "Thank you. I thought I was going to die here." Onyi stayed quiet, studying him. She couldn't tell where he was from. His clothes looked different, and she had never seen him before. But he seemed harmless, and he was very weak. He needed more help than she could give in the forest. "You need to come with me," Onyi said, helping him stand up. The young man almost fell, but Onyi caught him and helped him walk. "Thank you," he whispered, barely able to speak. Onyi helped him through the forest, watching for any danger. They had to walk slowly because he was very weak, and they stopped many times so he could rest. Onyi could feel how heavy he was leaning on her, and she knew he wouldn't make it far without her help. When they reached her home, Chidi ran out to meet them, looking surprised. "Onyi, who is this?" he asked, staring at the young man. Onyi helped the young man sit on the mat, then turned to Chidi. "His name is Ifeanyi. He got caught in one of my traps. He is really hot and needed a help. Chidi, please, bring some water." Chidi nodded and ran inside. He came out with a bowl of water. Onyi gave Ifeanyi the water to drink, and he looked at her with a grateful eyes, even though he was in pain. "Why were you in the forest?" Onyi asked gently. Ifeanyi looked at the ground, seeming unsure. "I was lost. I came here looking for something, but I don't know about the traps, and I got stuck." Onyi was curious. "Looking for what?" Onyi asked. Ifeanyi looked up at her, his eyes mysterious. It made Onyi's heart beat a little faster. "I was searching for someone, but I think I found more than what I was looking for." Onyi felt her face get warm, and she quickly looked away, focusing on the herbs she was using to treat his wound. "You need to rest. We can talk more when you feel much better," she said firmly. Ifeanyi nodded, giving her a small smile. "Thank you, Onyi. I owe you my life." Onyi didn't say anything, but she looked at him. She wondered who this mysterious young man was and why he came to Amala. She felt like his arrival was the beginning of something new, something that might bring both challenges and surprises. The next morning, Ifeanyi seemed a little stronger, although his leg still hurt. His smile returned, and his eyes looked brighter. Onyi was glad to see him feeling better. She wanted to make him comfortable, so she brought out some of her late father's old clothes. Because his own fancy clothes were torn, the new clothes were simple, but they fit him nicely, making him look like one of the villagers. Onyi made a hot meal using the leftover meat from her last hunt. The smell filled the small hut, making her proud of her cooking. When she brought the steaming bowl to Ifeanyi, his eyes lit up with happiness. "This smells so good," he said with a smile, and he started eating, Every bite made him feel better, and he enjoyed the meal a lot. After he finished, he leaned back and looked very happy. "Thank you, Onyi. You saved my life." Onyi smiled, glad to see him getting better. As he rested, she asked him about his story. "How did you end up hurt in the forest?" Ifeanyi took a deep breath, looking serious. "I came from the city to find my treasures. Some bad men broke into my house and stole them. They took diamonds, pearls, and a special emerald ring that belongs to my late mother. The police tried to find them, but they couldn't. So I decided to find the treasure myself." Onyi listened carefully, feeling curious. "And why did you think it was hidden in our forest?" "Before I left the city, I caught one of the thieves," Ifeanyi explained. "He told me that they hid the treasure under a big tree in this forest. They thought no one would look for it here in Amala village. I even have a map that shows where the tree is." Onyi felt excited hearing about the hidden treasure. She had always heard stories of lost riches, but she never thought she would meet someone looking for real treasure. "A map? Do you still have it?" she asked eagerly. Ifeanyi nodded, looking determined. "Yes, but I can't walk well yet. I need to get stronger before I can start searching." Onyi felt a pang of sympathy for him. She could see that he meant every word he said. "I believe you, Ifeanyi. I promise I will help you once you are stronger." He looked at her with a gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you, Onyi. Your kindness means so much to me. With your help, I might find the treasures and finally go back to the city." As the day went on, Onyi felt a sense of adventure bubbling inside her. She wasn't just helping a stranger. She was about to embark on a thrilling journey. She imagined the two of them searching through the forest, uncovering the clues, and maybe even finding the treasure hidden under a big tree. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but with Ifeanyi by her side, she felt ready to face whatever challenges might come their way.